welcome the lovely Ceryn Rowntree. How are you doing, lovely?
I'm good, thank you, my love. Thank you so much for having me. It's so lovely to be here.
Oh, darling, it's an absolute pleasure to be in your energy, in your space. You know, it's important for us to connect this way, isn't it?
It is massively, massively. I think it's so important, isn't it, when we have, I think when you're people like us who have interests like we have, who do the work that we do, but also just, you know, the things that call to our souls, the things that call to our hearts, it's quite easy sometimes to feel alone, isn't it? So it's really nice to connect like this. It's really lovely to have conversations like we have and to just have these connections.
It is lovely. It is. And for anyone that doesn't know you, you know, you've got a lot of spiritual strings to your bow. So bear with me. So you're a witch, third generation, medium, soul lead therapist as well, soul support mentor, podcast host, and ladies and gentlemen, you know, author as well. So first of all, how'd you find time to do all that? And secondly, as well, you know, where did your spiritual journey begin for you, lovely?
How do I find time? I don't know, is the short answer. A lot of it kind of, I think the thing is, a lot of this flows, doesn't it? A lot of it flows when you're doing what is aligned with you, when you're doing what really calls to you, what really feels right to you. It sort of flows. When you see that list like that, I go, how do I find time? That's a lot of stuff. But actually, in reality, it just sort of flows. It is just what it is, and it's all enjoyable. So it's all good stuff.
It shows, and you know, when you said that it's coming from the right place, you know, and you know, everyone's spiritual journey, you know, has started somewhere, you know. So where did yours start before all that list?
Oh my goodness. So I mean, it started for me when I was really, really young. I was probably 2 or 3 years old, toddling along the promenade in a little town called Blackpool, which you will know of, Chris.
Hey, Blackpool.
in the north of England.
Yes.
And had gone there with my parents, and I was walking along the promenade talking to someone no one else could see. And my mum always tells the story that everybody else is looking at this little girl going, what's that girl doing? And my parents are just like, yeah, she does this a lot. It's fine. This is just what she does. Because for my family have always been very spiritually inclined, very spiritually aware. You know, we joke about the fact that the family members who aren't really into this stuff, they're the odd ones of the family. It's not the other way.
I love that.
It's always just been, it's kind of in my blood, and we've always talked about it. It's always been a thing. So at a very young age, I started seeing people no one else could. I started talking to people no one else could hear. And my parents spoke to my grandma about it. And my grandma just kind of said, look, don't discourage her. Don't encourage her. Don't kind of encourage her to make things up, but don't discourage it. Just let her do what she needs to do. Ask questions if you need to, and make it normal. And so they did. So for me, it's always been a very normal thing to see spirit, to talk to spirit. And, you know, I think when I was about 21, 22, I thought, okay, now is the time I'm going to formally develop. So went to a spiritualist church, formally developed, went through classes, all of that stuff, and really started doing this as an official practice, if you like. And then everything went from there. I was actually thinking just this morning, it will be 10 years this week since I ran my first workshop.
Wow.
I set up a business with a friend and ran my first workshop to mark the 11/11/11 portal. And I was just thinking about if me then could see me now, she'd be, I don't know if she'd be probably a little bit mind blown, to be honest, just at how much I've stepped into myself, rather than, you know, back then I had all these books by all these incredible people who I still love, and I'm still, you know,
as we all do,
read their books.
We all do that.
But was like, well, if Diana Cooper doesn't see it, then I can't talk about it. And now here I am, leading workshops, writing books, doing all that is my stuff. That is what I need to talk about. And it feels quite scary when I put it like that, but also, again, just totally aligned. I keep hitting these earphones, sorry. Totally aligned. It's exactly how it's supposed to be, and it feels really cool.
Epic. I mean, but it's beautiful to see, you know, and it's important for people to know, you know, your journey as well. And one important thing for me, you know, is that, you know, if I can do it and you can do it, anybody 100%. Can do it. You know, we're not better than anybody else. You know, we've all had our own journey, you know, ups and downs, and, you know, are we good enough? Are we all those kind of, you know, things in our head? But at the end of the day, you know, you followed what's true within you, you know, which is so important. You know, you found that balance as well. You know, you've spoken, you know, and you've listened to your soul, really, which is an important thing. And that brings me to, you know, when I say, you know, soul lead therapist, absolutely love that, and soul support mentor, you know, your work that you do with clients as well, you know, what does that entail?
So I think for me, I trained, I guess I had a bit of a strange journey into my work in that I started off as a medium and then went and trained as a counsellor and trained as a coach also, but first of all trained as a counsellor. And the sole reason for doing that, soul as in only, was that I was standing up in a spiritualist church every week and I would hear people give messages. And all the people who come to a medium, not all of them, but the vast majority are looking for something.
Yep.
Either they're grieving and they just want somebody to help them, or they are lost and they want some guidance, or they just are confused and they want some answers. They all want something. And I would see some brilliant mediums who would stand up, who would give messages, all good. And then I would see some others who would just be, they didn't know they could be brilliant at how they spoke to spirit. I don't know why spirit are over here, but they are. But when it came to speaking to the physical people in the room with them, they didn't know how to hold those people. They didn't know how to look after the grieving. They didn't know how to look after the lost. And I used to sit there and get so frustrated. You know, I vividly remember a man standing up in a spiritualist church and saying to a lady, I've got your mother here. She died 18 months ago and she was incontinent before she died. And I remember just thinking, you just told a room full of people that this lady's mother was incontinent. Would you like somebody to say that about you in a room, in front of a room full of people? Possibly, I don't know, but just be a bit sensitive. And so I thought at that point, I remember thinking, I want to go and train to be a counsellor so that I know how to look after these people, so I know how to hold them while I'm passing on messages from spirit. Started training as a therapist, and then went, there's something missing here, because it's almost like through therapy, through traditional counselling therapy, you learn how to sort of remember all the bits of yourself. You learn how to put yourself back together in a world that has taken bits away from you and convinced you bits aren't good enough and all of that stuff. But there's a bit that is often missed out, and that's the soul. The bit that's often missed is the deeper connection with your soul, the deeper alignment, because I think even a lot of the current day kind of traditional practice in talking therapies of all kinds, it works to the level that the modern world works. And that will help a lot of people in a lot of ways, but there's a whole depth under there that we're missing. And so I kind of brought this together and went, I need to take this deeper. They need to remember more. They need to remember that power. They need to remember that wisdom. They need to remember that when you spoke there, Chris, about, you know, you listen to your soul, they need to be able to hear their souls, because the world's drowned that out so badly that we need to teach them how to listen again. Because like you say, it's not that I'm special. It's just that I wasn't, nobody told me I couldn't hear that. Whereas for most people, the world has told them they can't.
And
so that's what it's all about.
You've listened, which is important, but, you know, you've kind of drowned out, you know, the busyness in our world, you know, to listen inward, you know, and connecting, you know, with our soul, you know, and the wisdoms of that, you know, there's no wrong there, is there? No.
And I think, you know, that's one of the things that in terms of the work that we both do, I think that's one of the things that if I could tell anybody, I don't know, top 3 things that they need to know about this stuff, that would be one of them, that there's no wrong when you learn to just shush everything else for a moment and turn into yourself. It's never wrong. It always leads you in the right way. You just have to know how to listen to it.
Definitely do. And a great way to listen to it in the teachings as well. Your brand new book, I mean, so exciting, The Divine Feminist. You know, what a title, first of all, but what a book it's going to be. You know, what can we expect when we open that beautiful new book? You know, what's going to be in there? Can't wait.
So, well, if you'd asked me this when I first started writing it, I would have probably given you a very different answer to the one I'm about to, because this book has taken on a life of its own. I've just held the pen. It's done it all. So really, The Divine Feminist is about, it's very similar to what I just said. I think it's about taking us back before we got to a place where the world told us we weren't enough. The feminist in the title comes from the fact that, you know, a few years ago I had people talk about their spiritual awakenings. I like to think that I had a human awakening a few years ago, where it's almost like my body just started shouting at me to be heard. And when I started to listen, I kind of began to realize that there was more to this than the world was telling me. And I started to realize that, you know, we talk about feminism, we talk about women's rights, we talk, and it's not just about women, of course, we talk about all of the inequalities in the world, all of the oppression that goes on in the world, the prejudice, the discrimination that goes on in the world, that tells us that if we are not in this very particular box that society likes to call normal and society likes to call acceptable, then we are in some way less than and wrong. And there's a problem. And as I kind of sat with all of this, I started to realize that actually there's an energetic side to this. Because if you look at that energetic of what we call in the West, the masculine and the feminine, or, you know, what you would call in the East, the yin and the yang, actually what our societies have done is they've put this yang energy, this masculine energy, onto a pedestal and said, that is the way forward. This is success. This is right. This is normal. Everything else, just put it over there. Pretend that you don't have it. Try to ignore it. It's wrong. And the problem with that is that we are all of us, in this place of imbalance, because our world's in a place of imbalance. And we need to be able to remember what the whole other side of energy is, the whole other side of the world, the whole other side of ourselves. And that's not just for us as people, it's for the whole world. You know, the world is suffering. We're recording this just after the COP conference has happened. So climate change has been the thing to talk about for the last week, right? And we look at the world, and actually our world is suffering because we don't stop, because we don't pause, because we don't actually look outside of our own selves and ask, what does everyone else need? What do I, or, you know, when do I stop taking from the world and when do I give? When do I look and see what the rest of the world needs from me? When do I be empathetic to the other people, to the animals, to the earth, to the planet, you know, and so much more. We have backed ourselves into this corner simply because we're refusing to look at half of the energetic spectrum. So the Divine Feminist is really a bit of a journey through that. And what does that mean? What is this energetic imbalance I'm talking about? And it sort of goes through a series of kind of trying to create these, what the world has made into binaries, and looking at them instead as, but what happens if we stop being either or and instead become and instead celebrate and embrace and honor and cherish the wholeness of who we are and the wholeness of what the world is. And it works us through that and kind of talks us through a bit of pathway through that to really reconnect to ourselves and then look at that idea of balance and of alignment within ourselves.
That's so important as well. But that is so important. And that's, you know, the whole book from it, you know, is that reconnecting with ourselves, but more than just ourselves, reconnecting, you know, with the planet, with nature, you know, with people, and just knowing that there's more, you know, than just us, me, my job, bank, you know, TV, whatever. You know, if we start putting that out there, you know, we make the little changes within ourselves, but they become the big changes, don't they? And, you know, there's a big respect there. And I think, you know, throughout the whole, you know, Divine Feminist, there's a massive respect for the earth, for us, for our soul, for our journey, you know, for our futures. And that's such an important message, you know, today, you know, we're saying about COP right there, but, you know, for the future and for future generations as well.
Yeah, massively. You know, as you said earlier, I'm a practicing witch. And for me, you know, there are many different ways to define witchcraft. There are probably as many different definitions as there are witches. But for me, I think it all comes back to two things. It all comes back to connection. And that's connection to self. It's connection to the earth. It's connection to spirit. It's connection to the whole universe. And then balance. It's about looking at how we, you know, what are you doing in a ritual, if not bringing together all of the elements and then balancing that connection to kind of bring in a little bit more of this, for a little bit more of this, and you working with them, using those energies in line with your own energies to really sort of just affect change. And that's what this is. That's what the world needs. I'm not saying we all need to be witches, maybe, but that's what the world needs.
Yes,
we need that. We need that sense of connection, and we need that kind of recognition that we can rebalance, that we do have power to make change. as you say, for us, for the generations that follow, and for whoever knows what happens a long way in the future. You know, it's that sense of connection to all of it. Otherwise, you know, when you talk there, Chris, about that, it's not just me, my job, and I think that can be a really, what's the word, frustrating way to live.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure you've been there. I certainly have.
Yep.
That it's miserable. It gets to a point where it's only, I know when I was first starting this work, I would have days where I think, God, I just want to get a normal job where I come home at 5 o'clock on a Friday night and can just zone out for the weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
And the more I've gone, I still have days like that. I wouldn't.
We do, but that's so apt, because it is, because, you know, don't always have clients, don't always have it, you know, those kind of things. There's a security.
Yeah, there is.
In that
You're
world,
totally right.
there is, you know, and I always think, you know, like your mums, your dads, you know, people that have kind of said, you know, go and get a 9-to-5 job, go and work in a bank or whatever, you know, which I've done. And it's like, but when I do those jobs, I'm unhappy. Yeah. And it's me listening to my soul. You know, mum and dad aren't happy that, oh yeah, I'll give him a notice in again. You're like, again, oh my God, you know, what are you going to do? But you're listening, but you're kind of, you know, you're not going with the norm. You're not going with the expectations. You're going with your soul. And that's what, you know, the Divine Feminist, it's what it's all about. You know, you're reconnecting, you're relearning how to connect with your right self.
Yes. And, you know, I think there's an important part of that as well, that is, because no matter how much the world changes in the next 10, 20, 50, whatever years, we're going to need people who work in banks.
Yeah, of course.
We're going to need people who, I used to work in corporate communications. We will still need that. We will still need people who are not necessarily doing the kind of jobs that you and I are doing.
Yep.
And who are doing some, am I allowed to swear?
Of course you are. Go for it.
Who are doing some, I was only going to say bloody as well, who are doing some bloody incredible jobs with that. You know, we are not asking, in saying this, in writing this book and having this conversation and doing, I'll probably swear worse later, it's fine. In doing all of this, we are not asking anybody to pack in their lives and just go and, you know, do energy healing for a living or mediumship for a living. That's not what we're asking. Mm-hmm. But I think a part of this connection is in recognizing how you can bring that soul alignment into whatever you do.
Yep.
How you can bring that sense of connection, how you can bring that sense of, I'm doing this for me, that sense of where you get out of bed in the morning and don't go, work. Instead you go, okay, I'm going to work. I might be tired. Today might be a day I'd rather do something else, but I can go and do my job, whatever my job is. If it calls to me, I can follow that calling and I can embrace it and I can live my life on my terms.
Yeah.
Doing something I love. Like that's what this is about, isn't it? You know, as you can be, as I think there's this misrepresentation in the world that to be spiritual, you have to do certain jobs. You have to live in a certain way. But that's not true. You know, you can be as spiritual working as a car mechanic. Not that there's anything wrong with car mechanics, but working as a car mechanic as you can be working as a circle leader.
Yep.
You can be as spiritual sitting watching Netflix as you can spending 4 hours a day omming on your meditation mat. It's the intentionality, it's the alignment that you bring into your life that is important. Totally. And that's what this is all about. When we talk about a soul-led revolution, that's it.
Well, that's it. That is it, 100%. And, you know, and that's one thing, is for people to understand and realize that they don't have to sacrifice anything. You know, you're not saying kind of like, right, give up your job, you know, go and live in the woods. I know you'd like to, but, you know, and just go and live off the land. You know, if someone wants to do that, amazing. But it's bringing the elements into day-to-day life so 100%. People can connect with the soul, connect spiritually, but kind of live their best life. But most importantly, what will they have? They will have balance.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And that balance, you know, is it's going to flow. It's going to change. I don't know about you, there are days for me where I want to spend more time eating chocolate and watching Netflix.
Oh yeah.
And there are other days where I'm like, okay, get me my journal. I want to sit on my meditation cushion and I just want to journal for the next 3 hours.
Yep.
Sometimes neither of those things are possible and I end up doing something else, but that balance changes. Who you are changes, the world changes. And again, I think part of this fallacy of our imbalanced world is that we must stay the same, except that we must grow and ascend. And it's just not, it's not the way the world works.
No.
So it's about allowing ourselves the freedom to just be who we are and be in alignment with our souls that move and they change and they flow all of the time.
Yep. Just like waves. That's the way I kind of look at it. You know, that's what we're just doing. You know, every single person out there is doing their best.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, we can see by doing how we work and, you know, just the kind of people that we work with, you know, the benefits of all this, you know, and especially, you know, the Divine Feminist, that book. Okay, say someone's got it for the first time, they're new to spirituality, they're new to all this. How can they get the most, you know, out of the book?
Well, so the book it ended up being a bit of a workbook as well as a ready book, I guess you could say, in that you can pick it up and you can just read through it, and that's absolutely fine. Yeah. You will enjoy that. You will get stuff from it. It's fine. However, there is also, every chapter has journal prompts. Every chapter has meditation, at least one meditation. Every chapter has a ritual prompt. So you can really embrace it. You can do as much with this as you want to. You know, if you want to just maybe think on the journal prompts, maybe you'll get a little bit more, go a little bit deeper. If you want to do the meditations, awesome. If you want to do the rituals, it takes it even deeper, you know. So there's almost levels of engaging with this book, I think, and you can go as deeply with it as you want to. But I've very purposely tried to make this book it's not too woo-woo. You know, if you're somebody who has been on their own spiritual path for a decade and is like, give me the next thing, I think there is stuff in there that will point you in a different direction, potentially, you know, point you in the direction of deeper. But if you are somebody who has not really got an interest in going deeper spiritually, but is just a bit interested in coming more in alignment with themselves, whatever that means, there's enough in there, I think, that will keep you in a place of kind of real groundedness. I'm really big on grounded spirituality.
Yeah.
Without taking you into some whirl of kind of weirdness that you're just not comfortable with.
But I love it. But I absolutely love everything, you know, about you as well, because you've kind of, you know, you've done bits of everything, you know, and you've brought it together, but then you've birthed, you know, the Divine Feminist, which is just amazing. You know, it's kind of like you pulled from there, pulled from here, pulled from there, you know, and got the strength really to create a beautiful, you know, new way that people can bring in, you know, to their lives, regardless, like you just said there, you know, if they're brand new or they've been doing it for years, it will still work for everybody, but also on a human level, which I think is important. It's not too woo-woo. You're not reading it thinking like, what's this? You know, people will actually, you know, I've got my day-to-day, I can actually implement that in my life. I can do that before work, I can do it after work, or, you know, I'm going to get some self-love, self-time for me to be able to do that, which is important, isn't it?
So important. I think, you know, so often when certainly when I started off this journey of mine consciously as a teenager, as an adult, I think that a lot of the books I would read would tell me about things I needed to do outside of my life.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where spirituality had to be something that was a bolt onto my life, had to be something that I had to make an extra hour in the day for, or had to be awkward. And actually that's not true. It's just not true, because it's part of, and I think the real connection, with your own wisdom, with your own insight, with your own alignment, it comes when you realize that this is part of who you are. It's part of life. It's not something different. And we can meet that in any way we want to. We can, you know, it's as we're walking through life, that connection will look different all the time. We can meet it in whatever way we want to, however we need to at that time. But it's all about us doing it in a way that is grounded. You know, one of my favorite teachers is the author Megan Waterson.
Yeah.
And she uses a beautiful line where she says, the body is the soul's chance to be here. And I think so often you'll read spiritual books, you'll read about working, you know, about soul work, and it will talk about the importance of connecting upwards or connecting outwards. Really, but what about this? Because your soul can't experience life without this. You know, and there are things that your soul experiences here that it wouldn't get to experience if it wasn't in human form. We come here as humans for a reason. And the more we talk about our bodies as like, oh, yeah, my body's just something I've just got to drag through life. Your body's an incredible experience to be in life.
It is.
The more we talk about, one of my biggest pet peeves is people who go, well, I'm just having a very human day. course you are. You're a human. That's what you're meant to be doing. That's exactly what you're meant to be doing. But you can be soulfully human. Being human doesn't mean being unconscious. Being human doesn't mean being disconnected from yourself. That's something totally different. Being fully human is being soulfully human. You know, we need to stay in that place of alignment with ourselves as the immortal souls currently embodied in these glorious human selves. That's how we come into alignment. That's how we progress.
Amazing. And it's when people get this book, you know, it's just going to connect with their souls as well. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So, you know, when you hear, you know, the title, The Divine Feminist, you know, what do you want that to sum up for people? You know, when you hear that caption, what do you want people to be like?
That's a really good question. Because I think part of it is I want them to come into that for themselves. I can define that and will, but I want them to come into that for themselves. I think I almost struggled with it. Took me years, literal years, to write this book. And one of the reasons was I knew it had to be called this, but I struggled with the title because I struggled with that word feminist, because there's so many negative ideas about it. And there's so much of it's feminist, so it can't be for men, or it's feminist, or there's so much of that. And actually it's not this. When I talk about feminist in the context of this, it's just about that balance, that energetic balance of the yin and the yang. And I want them to remember to break out of the shit that society has told them about themselves. I want them to remember to break down all of those boxes that they've been put into or cast out of by society. And I want them to come back to a place of their own divinity in a very grounded, a very empowered, a very beautiful way that doesn't ask them to be anything other than they are, because it reminds them that who they are, now I'm going to swear, is absolutely fucking perfect. And it always has been. And that's where I want them to get to. That was a very long-winded explanation. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I absolutely love that, because it's coming, you know, from your heart, and of course from your soul as well, which is just so important. It really, really is, darling. Well, I've got to say, well, thank you so much for your time today. You know, you won't need any luck with the book, because you know it'll be a #1 bestseller but of course, it's out on the 18th of November as well, which is celebration day for you, for everyone, for souls everywhere. Everyone will be like, yay! But thank you so much, darling. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you, hear about your journey, you know, and this is another beginning for you as well. So there'll be much more to come.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's just been lush to talk to you.
Thank you, darling. Mwah.
Thank you. Mwah. Take care.